Hi, I'm Tori Bryer, the artist of this show, and I'm in Blackfish Gallery. I'm a member here. It's October 2013. I'm delighted to be among my works, to have them all hung together. These are monotypes, and they're a particular technique in art making that is a print, a form of print. But instead of being a print which has a defined matrix, like an etching or something that's embedded into a plate, monotypes are essentially painted onto a plate with rollers, brushes, any kind of way you want to do it, or can be abstracted. The color can be abstracted and forms made that way. Then you put a piece of paper on top of the plate that has been inked and made as you want it, as I want it. And then it is rolled through a press, and the ink transfers to the paper, so you end up with, voila, a great piece of something on your paper. Now, you may not like what you have on there, and you may want to continue creating the image, developing the image. So you take your plate again, roll different color ink on it if you want to, or in the case of these prints, the whole group, the whole show is called Garden Variety for a reason. Obviously, that I used plant forms and the plants themselves generally in creating the image. I'd like to explain the process by using this monotype it's called layers. And in a way, that's come to think of it exactly how it's done. First, I rolled 3 different colors on my plate, and then on top of that, I put a leaf, a branch really, a small branch that had leaves on it, that I'd rolled with some red, and put it on the colored pieces, on the colored rolls, and put my paper on top of it, ran it through the press, and got an image that was to my liking, but obviously needed much more development. So then I began to go in with other, a layer of color that went over the ones underneath, and put on top of that a leaf that I'd inked up with a light yellow color, a sort of cream color, and then put as a stencil, I put some other vine with the leaves, so that the stencil blocked out this color from going onto the background color, and allowed the background color to come through. And so it went on and on. Then I printed, rolled up a twig of, I don't know what it was, something I probably found out in the driveway, of a sprig, and wrote it a different color, put it on top there, and printed it. Then, actually what happened with this one, let's see if this is, yes. What's kind of fun about this one is that this shape here, I had this shape, this whole leaf, originally went off that way, on this blue. And I didn't like it. But I thought that the printing and the way it was printed, it's actually 2 color prints. It was a red, and then over that I rolled some sort of chartreuse green, but it was in this, going out this way, I didn't like it, so I cut it out. I literally took a razor and cut it out, and then found the way that I liked it, and collaged it onto the paper. So this is sort of interesting because it is a piece, this is actually an open spot here that shows the original background color. Anyway, this is just one of the wonderful things, the layering, the kind of layering that you can do, the layering of techniques, colors, building up your space that monotype affords. This particular print is called Struck, I think for obvious reasons. And it was made by rolling a plain roll of ink, and then putting it's essentially turpentine, but mineral spirits in a little bottle with a spout, and then drawing with that liquid onto the rolled plate. And then very, very fast, very quickly, one takes, I took the big squeegee and swiped off the plate, and this white part, which is the paper, actually, is where the mineral spirits were, and it wiped off clean, and then I printed. I'd actually printed it over an older print that never developed into anything, became a sort of background, and I built off of that older print. And then began to ink up my fern and have that printed. Then I decided I wanted to make some kneaded triangles, and so I put those on the plate and printed again. Sometimes I go through the press, 9, 10, 15 times. But you end up with one print that you will never be able to duplicate as an edition or anything like that. I also like to use my own drawing or pencils in the work I do. This is an example of using a roller, using a syringe that's filled with ink that I draw with as it's spurting out a little bit of ink color. It also lifts the ink in some places. So I made this plant-like form by painting it, and with rollers, with taking away some paint or ink. And then I added, how did I do that one? Oh yes, on the plate, after I had put it through the press and gotten the sort of general background area, I took some black ink on a roller and a fern and put it on the plate on what is now the ghost of the previous print, and then rolled with black ink along the leaves of the fern. What that did was the fern acted as a stencil, as a blockout, but the black serves as the around the edge of the ferns, because I wanted something light to come forward, and did this in a yellow here and a white here. The fern again acts as the stencil or the blockout, if you will. But I didn't do it leaf by leaf or frond by frond. I did it. I did the roll over the whole thing, making it a pretty tight rectangle or a square there. Well, I think by now you sort of get the idea of how it's built up with these various techniques and so forth. This, you may recognize as the skitter part, is something I made, again, sort of drew with the syringe filled with the ink. And these were leaves. They were both, I used both the filling in of the leaves and also the fact that the leaf became a block out, a stencil for at some point, and printed again, sometimes colors back in. Then at the very last, this is not my usual way of doing things. It should be easier. This brown part was not there, and I wanted, so it was quite spare. But I wanted to make some movement and flow to it. So I cut out some just pieces of paper and dotted them as if they are leaves to start the movement, and then added, then rolled over the brown, put in some of these leaves back on there again in order to not have some parts printed brown, and then drew in with the syringe the skittery part, the little skittery lines. Further comments on some of the techniques. This is a sort of fun combination of a monotype with collage materials and so forth. This had many, many layers. I think it was many prints on top of many prints until I decided to, I rolled a whole plate of the turquoise, and then drew with the mineral spirits, and then swooshed it off to create this. These lines here, and what that did for me was to make the background not appear over the whole thing. It was a entrance into the image. It was fine, except somebody came up to me and said, "Oh, that's nice. It looks like pairs of flip-flops that have been lined up together." And I thought, well, you know, I just don't think that's good enough. So I looked at it for a while longer and considered some other things, but I had some grains that I'd picked up. And they were in the studio, and happened to land on top of this print, and great, I thought, this is exactly what they need. I'm going to ink them up and print them on there. But then I said, you know, no, I don't think so. I think it needs something with a little more body to it. And so I'm going to use those dried grain pieces, or the dried branches, as is. I'm going to collage them on there. So I soaked with, I sort of preserved them with, by soaking them for a while in acrylic mediums, and then ran them through the press to get as much of the acrylic out as I could. I rolled an acrylic medium, which served as an adhesive for them. And then I rolled them through the press again and permanently attached them to this. And I think it's quite fun. One of the wonderful things about doing monotypes is that it is a combination of the two things that I've done all my life, painting and printmaking. I was first a printmaker, and did the sort of printmaking where there are additions, etching, lithographs, silk screens, so forth. And then I began painting a great deal. And my last show, in fact, was of paintings. And they were much more abstract and had a quality that I wasn't totally satisfied with. But then I thought, well, combining printmaking and painting is a wonderful way. I feel very, very comfortable using monotypes as my medium, as my way of painting and printing. They're monotypes because they are only one. There's only one of these, even though you can use parts of your plate again and again. You can print it several times and have the ghosts to build on. I love the way that the ink, that the paper holds the ink. It sinks in and becomes sort of one. It's a beautiful surface. It's a beautiful medium. You can do a number of things, all kinds of different technical things. So you can see it's a wonderful medium to work in. It has endless possibilities, endless. It is always a surprise. It always has the element of surprise. It's a little bit, I don't know if you've developed photographs, but the old-fashioned way. But being in the darkroom and suddenly this thing begins to appear and it's like out of your hands and it's something wonderful.